Hi everyone, thank you for watching this episode. I know it's been a while since we recorded the last one, and we are now officially through like the first 6 books. So this is book number 4, and we're hoping to get caught up with the next couple, hopefully by the end of the year. And then we're taking a break because, as you'll discover, book 6 is kind of the end of what Baum was hoping would be the book series. And then he just keeps going. Anyway, I discovered actually while researching that there's actually like 40 to 75 Oz books total, depending on how many authors you count, because the illustrator just kept going on with the series. So yeah, Dan's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I don't even know if I want to do the next 8. So we're back to Dickens for our nightly read. Anyway, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, book 4. I don't know, I think this might be my second favorite out of the original 4. And I only say original 4 because it came in a nice little slipcase box, so that's what I had for a bunch of years. Anyway, we still have Dorothy. Yay, Dorothy. Only this time we're going over to the other side of the country to visit relatives at Hugson's siding. And we bring with us a little tiny kitten and a birdcage, which is great. And she's supposed to meet up with her cousin's side of the family. And the cousin does meet her at the train. His name is Zeb, and he's got a cab horse named Jim. And they're basically supposed to take Dorothy back to the family abode on that side of the country. Well, an earthquake happens, and depending on the timing, it could be the big one in San Francisco, I'm not sure. But it opens up the earth, and the buggy ends up falling towards the center of the earth. They pass all these suns that end up crashing into a glass house. Oh, anyway, I should probably add for Dan. If you want to add things, please feel free to add things, so you may have to shout.
I will add what I need.
Okay. I don't know how the audio's going to pick up.
I'm caught up on which book was which, because, again, it's my first time through.
Right on. So anyway, they pass the suns, all these colored suns, and they end up crashing into a glass house. Boom! And falling through it. Everybody survives, don't worry. And they also discover that Eureka the kitten can talk. Ah, crazy. And they discover also everyone can walk on air. It's kind of like Looney Tunes in the early days, where everyone can just walk on air as long as you're not thinking too much about it. Actually, no, it doesn't have anything to do with thinking about it. They discover the cat can do it, and then they're like discovering that the humans can do it, so they're like, come on, cab horse, give it a go. And they do. And so they eventually start walking down. Basically, they pretend there's a stairs, and they walk down to the ground, level. And they decide to go see the sorcerer, because everybody that's in the general area is like, well, you got to report to the sorcerer because you crashed through and broke our glass houses, and we're a little peeved off about that, and he kind of runs the kingdom right now, so go check him out. Okay, fine. So they go see the sorcerer, and while they're trying and being presented to the sorcerer, the Wizard of Oz comes back in their lives by crashing through again into what is called the land of the Mangaboos. And he crashes in himself with the balloon because, he was a balloonist, remember? He does his balloon thing back in the real world. And somehow he just ends up going through the earthquake. Yeah. Anyway, he meets up with the sorcerer, and they have like a little sorcerer sort of showdown. And he decides to show off all his little tiny pigs, because he's got a bunch of little tiny little pigs that are very cute. Like, I don't know, they look like guinea pig sized pigs in the illustration to me. They're not like tiny like dog size, they're like real little.
I got the impression that they were more like about the size of gerbils and hamsters.
Gerbils and hamsters, says Dan.
Because
speak up.
Some of his tricks, not even just his tricks, but even when they're traveling through the underworld, he keeps the mice inside of his jacket,
his shirt, yeah,
inside of his shirt, to carry him with him. So they got to be. If he's got 18 little piggies, they got to be pretty darn small.
I thought it was 9.
9? Okay, well,
still a lot. So 9 pigs have to go down his shirt. So that's the size of the pigs, for those of you that are trying to visualize. And Gwig the sorcerer decides to counter this by stopping Wizard of Oz's breath. But while he's chanting, the wizard takes out the sword that he's got disassembled, starts putting it together like it's Minecraft, and then he slices the sorcerer straight in two. He's assuming it's a meat person who's gonna hurt him, so he's totally surprised that the sorcerer just literally splits in two. Because they're vegetable people. Anyway, they discover, after slicing the sorcerer in two, that the glass houses also grow out of the ground. They're organic somehow. The mangaboos are organic, and the glass is organic. The mangaboos don't live very long, though, after they're picked. So it's only about 5 years after they're picked that they get to live their life. And Dorothy is like, well, the princess over there, because they end up in the royal gardens, to get this nice explanation of why the sorcerer can be slain in two. The princess is really ripe, but the prince is like, yeah, I'm in no rush to be stuck and planted. I've been going for like 6 years. I'm kind of, yeah, let's not pluck that princess until she's totally there. Anyway, the prince, because he's in charge, not the sorcerer, decides to destroy everyone but the wizard, because the wizard's the most powerful. And everybody else is like, let's go pick the princess. She can't possibly be worse than this, right? But when they do, the princess just sort of, she's beautiful, she's great, but she doesn't really give a dang. And she decides to take the court back to the palace, because they're like, woohoo, we got a princess. And of course the prince, his time is now limited. And the travelers are like, where should we go? And they're like, well, let's go at the sorcerer's house, because he's dead anyway, so no one's gonna bother us. But then the next day the princess comes and says, look, we're gonna throw you all in the garden of clinging vines, which is kind of what it sounds like, a big pile of clinging vines that rip you to pieces. Good times. The wizard counters by essentially asking her advisors, who were telling them to throw them into the clinging vines, to walk into this fire that he lights. They've never seen fire before, because again, they're vegetable people. So all the advisors that walk into the fire end up torched. So once again, the wizard is more powerful. Anyway, days later, after much more consultation, the mangaboos return, and they decide that, okay, I guess the humans can stay, but Jim the horse, Eureka the cat, and all these piglets, these guys gotta go. We've never seen meat animals in our lives, and we're not about to start getting weird now. So they decide to drive them out to this big green glass mountain, and they imprison them in there, but while they're bricking them in, the cat jumps out and goes and gets Dorothy and runs off. And everybody rushes back to the mountain and ends up, the mangaboos force them in, because they're like, oh, okay, you're here too, we'll just shove you in, everybody just go in the damn mountain, you're no longer our problem. And they say, fine, this has got to be better than the mangaboos, there's got to be something on the other side of this thing they shoved us into, right. I love how optimistic they are. And so they walk through to this valley, which is named the Valley of Voe, and they find out about the valley by coming across this house that seems like it's empty, like the Three Bears sort of situation. But then they start hearing voices, and it freaks them out, because they're like, where are all these voices coming from? And stuff starts moving, and this and that. And the people end up telling them, they eat this fruit called the Dama fruit, and it turns them invisible. And the reason that they eat it, even though they're all invisible, and that sucks, they can't see each other, is because there's a bunch of bears in the valley that also eat the fruit and are freaking invisible. So the only way they can avoid getting eaten by the bears is to eat the Dama fruit. Well, nobody in the party of travelers wants to be invisible, because they are concerned that nobody else will be able to see them, and then they will get lost, etc. I think even one of the piglets, do you remember if one of the piglets eats it and disappears for a little while?
I don't think so. I don't think any of the people,
alright,
none of the party ate it, because they didn't, like you said, they wouldn't be able to even see each other.
Yeah. So the next day, or maybe after lunch, I forget which, they decide to leave the family, still visible, but while crossing the valley, because they hear the bears off in the distance, and they're like, oh, this is not good, someone, again invisible, tells them to rub this specific plant on their feet and the tires of the buggy, because they still have the buggy. They shove the buggy in with Jim and, the horse, and all over the buggy tires, so they can walk onto the river and float down the river, whereas the bears cannot. So the bears are invisible, but they can float on the river. So they really quickly do that, because again, they can hear the bears approaching, and they make a mad dash to the river, and then and this is the image that's on the book cover I always love, and then they take a mad dash on the river, because they can walk on the water, up to this pyramid mountain, which I always picture like a big old ziggurat, I can never say that word right. And so they begin the steep stairs to the top, and at the midpoint to the top, and I'll just finish this section, we'll do a little pause. They encounter this guy that's called the Braided Man, and he's got, basically his whole hair is like crazy braids, but he's an old guy, I think an old hippie with a bunch of braids on him. And he makes I don't know how they work, but he makes what he calls flutters and rustles. And flutters are for flags, and rustles are for girls' dresses. And he wants to give a box to Dorothy, even though we're kind of like, I don't know if we need them. But he's like, all I want is a blue ribbon in return, because all of my braids have got different ribbon colors, but I don't have one that's blue. So Dorothy gives him a blue ribbon, and he's all like, ah, sweet, that's all I ever wanted in life. Do a little pause here. Alright, gonna go a little further till we get to town. I'm just trying to figure out what route we're taking. Anyway, so we go past the midpoint of the ziggurat, and we keep climbing until Jim the cab horse crests the landing at the top of the pyramid and freaks the hell out and starts backing down. And everybody else is like, what the hell's the damn problem? And he's like, nope, I want no part of what's up there. Anyway, they end up pushing him up over the incline, and they discover the country of the gargoyles. And the country of the gargoyles is very, very strange, because everything is made of wood, yet the entire place is completely silent. Anyway, the gargoyles soon notice them, not least because Jim's freaking out, and they capture everyone, and they drop them into like this house that just has a big open roof because the gargoyles fly. And Eureka the cat decides to go off while they're, sleeping, and discovers that the gargoyles can detach their wings before sleeping. So they take them off before they go to sleep, and they're kind of vulnerable then. So Zeb decides to help her go steal 4 of them, and Zeb's the kid that was taking Dorothy home, for those of you that might have forgotten. So Zeb goes out, steals 4 of them, and him and the wizard attach them to the buggy and the harness. And they take off with the gargoyle's wings attached to the buggy and fly to a higher entrance further up. I thought they were at the top, but I guess they weren't at the top. And find this entrance to a new tunnel. And they go in the tunnel, because again, where else are we going to go? And in the tunnel, they stumble upon these dragonettes. And the dragonettes want to eat them because they're baby dragons, but they can't eat them because their tails are tied to the back of rocks. So they decide, the adventurers decide to leave before their mother returns, because they're like, yeah, we're tied up because mom doesn't want us, getting in trouble. And we're like, I don't think I want to find out what mom's like, because these are really big dragons for babies. So I'm out of here. Anyway, they keep on climbing some more inside the cave until they pass this spinning rock, and then they reach a dead end where they can see the real sun through this crack in the cave's roof. And Dorothy realizes at this point, now here's the deus ex machina of this entire thing, because you're halfway through the book, you're like, why are we doing this? She can communicate to Ozma, because of that whole magic belt, magic picture thing, where Ozma looks at the magic picture once a day or once a week or whatever. And sees Dorothy to check in on her. So yeah, she's like, oh, I can just communicate to Ozma at 4 p.m. to come get us. And at this point, I'm just screaming why did we do this entire Fred and Peripatetic adventure if you're just gonna deus ex machina out of the situation, Bomb? Come on now.
3 complete adventures before she figured it out.
Well, actually, more than that, because you have, you end up in the land of the Mangaboos, and then you go into the Valley of Vo, and then you climb up the side of the pyramid, meet the braided guy, and then you go up to the land of the gargoyles, and then you get chased into the valley with the dragonettes inside the cave, and then you, try to get out. Yeah, and then she's like, wait, I know how we could get out. We could just let Ozma bail us. So, anyway, I'm going to take a little pause while we do some errands, and I'll come back to you with what happens once they get into Oz. Okay, we are back, and as you may have noticed, the sky has changed. We went shoe shopping, which took a while because Family Farm and Home, for whatever reason, wants to rearrange its aisles for clearancing and not put shoes all in the same place. Or anything else in a logical place, if you ask me, because I went down the clearance section. I'm like, there's no food down here. And then as soon as we're leaving, we're like, the food is past the checkout register. Come on now. People want the clearance junk like me are looking at the clearance section for the food. Anyway, Family Farm and Home, you're doing all right most of the time. Thank you for having cheap-ish shoes or a shoe sale for good shoes anyways. All right. So we had the Deus Ex Machina, and Ozma just zicks them back to the Emerald City, because why not? And the next thing that sort of happens is Ozma decides to ask the wizard about the origin of the country's name. So it's like, is Oz named after you? Are you named after it? What's the story there? And he explains that he got this wonderful name, OZ Pinhead, are the initials. And the long version of the name, which I did write out for you all, is Oscar, Zoroaster, Phaedrig, Isaac, Norman, Henkel, Emmanuel, Ambrose, Diggs. Yeah, OZ Pinhead. And it was simply coincidence that previous rulers were called Oz, because apparently that means great and good. Hopefully this won't screw up the audio. In their language. So everyone reunites and catches up, and Jim the Sawhorse ends up meeting the real, or Jim the Sawhorse meets the real, or Jim the carriage horse, the cab horse meets the Sawhorse, and that does not go well, because he's all like, you're an imposter, not a real horse. And the Sawhorse is like, you suck. I can outrun you and outlast you and this, that, and the other every dang day. Anyway, you think they would get along, but they don't. But that's like the only place Jim has to stay is out by the Sawhorse's stable. So it doesn't end well. Yeah, they don't like each other.
But it turned out that the Sawhorse was gratified to meet a real horse because he's never seen a real horse.
That is true.
Because there's no real horses in Oz.
And everyone gets to meet the lion and the hungry tiger again. And then the next chapter they do this big procession, which I just wrote procession down the notes because it's a dang long set of notes. And then the wizard entertains with a bunch of cool magic tricks and the pigs and all that. And then they do this day of like field day. For those of you who are Gen X or older, you may remember field day after about our era when people started having bad feelings. They stopped having field day. But field day is when you had races and little competitions and stuff for those of you who are younger and all got participation trophies. And Jim loses his temper when he does this like foot race against the Sawhorse. And basically he starts like yelling at the Sawhorse and attacks him, and the tiger jumps on him and throws him to the ground. It's basically like, that's our friend, we roll together, anyone who insults him messes with all of us, you better, you know, calm the fuck down, essentially. And so Jim apologizes, like, okay then.
I think that's when it came out that the Sawhorse was in awe of meeting an actual horse, what he was modeled after.
Yeah. The Sawhorse is not a real horse. It's just an imitation.
He knows he's an imposter, but he'd never seen what he was modeled after, what he was supposed to be. So he felt good about it, and they became friends after that, actually.
Right on. And then the next little episode, Eureka the kitten is accused of eating like Ozma's favorite piglet. I did miss a little bit there. She asked the wizard to give her like one of the piglets to like be her own little piglet pet. And she puts like this green emerald collar on him. So it's her little piglet, and the rest of them just all still hang out together, apparently. So Eureka doesn't defend herself. She's just like, okay, whatever. And the wizard tries to like defend her by passing off like another piglet as Ozma's piglet, like, woo, I found it. But Eureka busts him because she's like, it doesn't have the green collar on him. So that's obviously not the same piglet. And they're like, we're trying to save you from being killed. And she's just not getting it. Anyway, she just calmly, like a cat, it just states like, you guys are just throwing up so much drama. It fell into this big vase that has a really narrow neck and can't get out. And they're basically like, well, why didn't you defend yourself? And she's like, y'all should just take my word for it when I say I didn't eat the thing, okay? I shouldn't have to explain to you. Yeah, that doesn't really go very well. It doesn't win her any friends. So she ends up being confined to like Dorothy's rooms because it's like, I don't know if we can trust you. And I think that's like a good metaphor for all cats. I don't know if you can trust any cat.
No, you can't.
Yeah, Dan's like, no, you can't. And so at one point, Dorothy decides to check in and see what's going on with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em as usual back on the farm. And looking through the magic pictures, she sees everybody mourning her because they assume she died in the earthquake. Again, Dorothy just keeps dying over and over. Nobody worries about that. So more of Dorothy's death and the earthquakes. Okay, in the earthquake. So both return home. Oh, okay, this is my last card, sorry. That's why we number our cards. So anyway, both end up returning home because Ozma can send them back with the belt. And Zeb's also kind of like, this is not the place for me. I don't really want to stay here. The wizard, however, is kind of cool with it, and he decides to stay there. But Dorothy and Zeb and Jim the Sawhorse all decide to go back to Hugson's siding, I believe it is. Yes. And meet up with the family again and go back home. And everyone lived happily ever after, and nobody questioned the fact that everyone fell into the middle of the earth and had this weird adventure. And somehow Zeb doesn't talk about it. Anyway. Oh yeah, and Jim loses like his power speech, I think.
That everybody will think he's just nuts.
Even though Dorothy's with him, it would probably collaborate.
Well, everybody thinks Dorothy's nuts anyways either.
Yeah, there's... With the rise of Wicked and everything, I saw there was like another variation of somebody retelling it where it's basically, I think it's like a horror movie where it's all inside Dorothy's like head, and it's all just this like crazy disassociation trip, and I'm like, guys, can we stop messing with it? Although I do find it extremely funny, anyone who came here that's based off Wicked, that y'all are reading like the original book and are horrified at how freaking dark it is. Because I'm like, yeah, I never understood why they made a musical out of it. And then I listened to the musical, and I need to break out and listen to it again because I'm sure the songs are good, but I just never got into it because it's so far from the source material. It's like, yeah. Not that you should necessarily make the source material into a musical. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just happy we got through book 4. I did take the notes for book 5, but we're getting close enough we can just enjoy the drive back. And chitter chatter if you want.
And chitter chatter.
Get some bonus content. Maybe we'll see an animal.
Never know.
Yeah,
Never know.
Yeah, the next book is The Road to Oz. And I think it's almost the last peripatetic adventure where you're actually wandering around somewhere.
Which one is that?
That's the one where they end up getting all the roads spun around in a circle on them. She picks up the Shaggy Man.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, that's the next book.
I thought that was the one that we're on now.
No, the one that we're on is...
That we just finished.
No, the one that we just finished is the one where they, like, literally just talk. Okay, spoiler alert. So, skip out now if you want the spoilers, but they literally go back and talk to Aunt Em and Uncle Henry and make the offer to them. It's a non-peripatetic novel at the first half, and I'd forgotten that they spend the second half touring Oz, so then it becomes peripatetic, so... It's like, okay... I figured it was like Bleak House, which is Charles Dickens' like one non-peripatetic novel, which I like the best, oddly enough. Nobody wanders around in it, but it's the best of the bunch. Anyway, we decided, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, that we need a break, so now we're reading Our Mutual Friend at night. And I think I have Barnaby Rudge, and I might be done with all of Dickens' oeuvre. Which is sad, because Dickens is pretty dang good. Probably replaying for Dan. He probably hasn't heard all of them. Not too bad.
It's okay. A lot of it with the Oz, though, part of it was that one or the other of us would sleep through and wouldn't be caught up to the other. So we keep on hearing chapters 2 or 3 times in a row, and it just got to be too much.
It worked out better when it was warm weather out because I could go outside and smoke and listen to it on my phone while everybody was just giving me strange looks walking by in the quad, whatever. I don't care. I don't need no earbuds. But that was how I caught up on it most of the time for the other books. I would just re-listen to it while I was out in the quad smoking. Now it's like, well, if I got to go sit in my car and run my car, may as well play video games. So, yeah, that's on me. That's why I caught up on Our Mutual Friend this morning, up to...
There's Jim's house.
Yep.
The one farther back there.
Okay. The way back. Alright, so we're probably almost up to the turn, eh?
Yep.
Alright, well, I'll say bye to you, world. Hope you enjoyed this.